Hello and welcome to another video on my channel where today I'll be discussing 5 hot takes I have with the current Milan, not just the side but in terms of the club as well. So I'm going to be discussing, controversial, or at the very least debatable opinions about Milan right now, although I'm sure I didn't need to explain what hot takes are to you, so let's get straight into the video. Now, my first hot take is actually going to relate to transfer activity. So we all know that we need to improve the right wing. My hot take's not about that, but it's about who could be the improvement for that area of the pitch. Now, Berardi hasn't been linked in a bit, so the trail, it could be said, has already gone cold. But when it was consistently said that Berardi might be a Milan player, there wasn't really a negative reception to it, which is why I'm mentioning this as a hot take that Berardi will definitely flop. Now, if you need sort of concrete evidence as to why this would happen, look at his performances with Italy. We see with Sassuolo though that he does register, like for example last season he did register in double figures for both goals and assists, but the problem is he can do that for a small team where he is the main focus of the team, he is the fulcrum of the team, but when he moves into a bigger side he will ultimately flop because of this, not only the fact that he's not the main man anymore, he won't receive as much service, but simply the expectation is way higher than it would be at Sassuolo. So, for example, last season they finished 11th, so a mid-table sort of all-right season for them, and so there wasn't really expectation to do much in that season, whilst if he were to join Milan, for example, we just won the league title, he'd immediately be expected to be very on form in order to try and maybe deliver another league title, go further in the Champions League, which I believe is a competition. Well, it's a competition he's never played in. So this is why I'm saying this, because he is still, to me, one of the possible candidates that could come in to try and improve that right wing role. Not that I'm saying that he actually would, I'm just saying that I think that there still is a small chance, because, for example, we saw how quickly the links with Ziyech re-emerge, and now he's one of the main targets to improve the attack. So, things can change quickly, which is why I'm still making this hot take about how Berardi simply said will flop, and this is not just if he goes to Milan. This is if he goes to Roma. I've heard that link recently, so I'm just putting it out there. Going to a bigger club, going to Roma, especially going to Milan, he'll flop. Now, I'll admit, I kind of chickened out with this one because I was genuinely going to put as my hot take that Theo is the best left-back in the world right now. But for a hot take, it has to be controversial, it has to be debatable, but I actually have to believe in it. And frankly, even though I do rate him really highly, I don't think he's the best left-back in the world right now, because even though the way he bombs forward sometimes is unstoppable and is even revolutionary in terms of left-backs, but I just think that there are still bits to work on with his game, especially defending, especially decision-making sometimes, because he can squander precious attacks, rarely, but still sometimes, and then he can make mistakes leading to opposition goals. So, whilst he may not be the best left-back in the world right now, will he be the best left-back in the world? I think so, because, as I said, the way he bombs forward, the way he attacks is simply revolutionary. We didn't usually see that from left-backs. If we did, we saw it very, very rarely, but I feel like the way that Theo does it, it's something remarkable, because most left-backs, they're mainly defensive, or if they're not, they're called left wing-backs anyway. But the way that Theo operates in a formation that isn't exactly designed to have wing-backs that bomb forward, but he does it anyway, and it works, well, that's thanks to Pioli as well, to be fair, is just, it's remarkable, and that's why I think that, that alone puts him in the top 3 left-backs in the world, his ability to attack just to devastating effect. But as I said, there are bits of his game to work on, which is why I'm not going for best left back in the world right now. But will be? I mean, what are his contenders? The main contender, to be honest, is Alphonso Davies, and that's what makes this controversial, frankly, because he is an amazing prospect as well. But I just think, I have faith that whilst I don't think Alphonso Davies will fall away, and I don't think that, well, I do think that Theo will become something remarkable, which is why I'm putting him as the best left back in the world sometime in the future, perhaps even soon, because I think last season, even though there were still some mistakes that he made, like he definitely did improve in his defensive phase. I think he is gradually maturing. Remember, he's only 23 as well. Now, my third hot take of this video is, I guess, a bit obscure compared to the first two. Now, we've talked about Berardi and Theo. These are well-known names in Italian football anyway, and Theo, to be honest, worldwide. But with the third hot take, I'm going to talk about Krunic. Now, this is like the very sort of nature of my hot take, if you will, is about how underrated he is and how little he's mentioned. And I think especially last season, he proved that I think that he is, you know, by the fact that he doesn't really have much like that's very unique, he's tossed aside in terms of sort of respect. Like we might say, that was an alright performance. You know, he didn't really do anything special, whatever. You know, we need to probably get an improvement soon for him. I think that's really disrespecting him because, okay, yes, he may be not as flashy as, you know, Benacer. Like sometimes he pulls off like deft touches that are like really beautiful, like, you know, intricate passing moves. And he may not have the youth of Tonali, for example. But I think his very nature of being Mr. Reliable and just someone who doesn't really have much of like a sort of reputation for doing sort of new things or unique things, that's actually really valuable to our squad because yes, we can have these special players who do special things and have their own special talents, but then we just need just a cool, reliable man in the midfield, which is what Krunic is to me. And that's why I think that no, frankly, we don't need to improve on him. We need someone especially like him to come on in the situations where we don't need anything flashy, but we just need stability in the centre of the field. And that's why I think he's underrated, frankly, because I think there's just this consensus that we should be improving on him soon. No, I think it's perfectly fine to have a player like him. It's perfectly fine to have that player who is reliable and nothing but that. Now, the three hot takes that I've done so far have mentioned specific players, but this fourth one is going to be more sort of general about Milan. And this is the future stadium, because we all know that Milan is looking for a new home, or at least a modern one, because San Siro, as beautiful as it is aging, and definitely does need sprucing up, let's just say. So for example, the very top ring of the stadium, I believe, is off limits all of the time, I think. So there is definite need for improvement, and there have been sort of plans touted to, I think, demolish San Siro and build a new one on top of it, or maybe even go for a completely different area of the city. I think Sesto San Giovanni, and like build on a former industrial site. I think that's another plan that's been mooted because of the gridlock with the planned new shared stadium with Inter. But frankly, I think that there's not really much consideration being given to the current San Siro stadium in itself, because yes, it is old, yes, it does need improvement, yes, it does need modernisation, but there's just something about it which screams iconic. Now, like, when you, like, San Siro is like probably one of the most well-known stadiums in the footballing world, and there is a good reason for that, because its structure is just simply, it's fantastic, and it's different from the crowd. Now, we have the modern stadiums that are coming about, so think your average, I don't know, Brentford stadium. So I don't know why that popped into my head, but that's just your normal bang average modern stadium, and it's fine. I mean, I don't exactly dislike modern stadiums. I think, you know, their sort of simplicity and their ability to meet the needs of the club. For example, in Brentford, like the stadium's basically perfect for them. I think it's perfect capacity. It just, you know, it looks modern and everything. So I'm not exactly against the idea of a modern new stadium for Milan, but I'm against the idea of simply disregarding all the history with San Siro and just how iconic it is. And another thing with it that I have a problem is that when you build new stadiums, you're looking to expand on the marketing front. So look at the two North London clubs, for example. Arsenal moved from Highbury, which is, again, it's iconic, but it's not iconic in terms of structure like San Siro, because let's be honest, it's not that impressive. So they moved into this new UFO-like Emirates Stadium, and the Emirates Stadium is a very good stadium, but it's often slated for not having much atmosphere sometimes because of its, how modern it is and whatnot. And Tottenham the same. They moved out of the iconic White Hart Lane. Again, not iconic because of its sort of architecture. It's hardly impressive. But then they moved into a toilet bowl of a new stadium, and I just called it a toilet bowl. It's still a very modern, impressive stadium. And they both did this undoubtedly to expand and improve their image, because it's hard to sort of expand your sort of influence worldwide, try to gain new fans in Asia or whatever, if you have stadiums that are at best average. So that's why they would build new stadiums like that, to show off their shiny new toy. Like, look at us, we got a brand new higher capacity stadium. But with Milan, there is already the impressive San Siro there. So in terms of marketing, is there really a need for a new stadium? Now, I'm not saying that San Siro should be left by itself, because I know, I literally said it needs renovating, it needs modernisation. So why don't we do that instead? Now, I'll accept there is one major issue with simply renovating San Siro, giving it a spruce up and calling it a day, and that is the weird ownership situation with the stadium. Now, in Serie A, I believe there's only Juventus, Udinese and maybe Sassuolo who actually own their own new modern stadium, or new by Italian standards, let's be honest. And that is because, I think, like, for example, with San Siro, it's owned by the council, and so, like, the club, Milan Inter, can obviously sell tickets, gain profits from that, but a portion of that has to go to the council because they own the stadium. So, of course, I understand that the massive financial incentive is to get rid of, San Siro, build a new one that's owned by Milan, and no one but Milan, or Milan/Inter, but not owned by the council, and reap the reward and profits. I understand that, which is why this is probably the most debatable hot take for me. Like, I know these are meant to be debatable, but even I'm doubting this one. But the thing is that maybe it's just my emotional attachment to San Siro. I've never actually been. I'd love to, though, that's the thing. Because it's just so iconic, as I've said, and just such a staple of Milan, which is why it would just be such a shame to demolish it and just sort of say goodbye and just, place a modern, nice, but maybe even soulless stadium. If not soulless, well, just a stadium lacking in history like San Siro has. So I know that there is a complex ownership situation, but why not use this momentum to build a new stadium, to challenge the city council? Because, let's be honest, Italy needs a massive revamp with the way that they handle the ownership of stadiums. It's massively holding Serie A back. In my opinion, I guess this would be another hot take, but it's not really to do with Milan specifically, which is what this video is about. In my opinion, Serie A, is in the top 2 of leagues in the world, maybe behind the Premier League, maybe even equal, although the Premier League is just ridiculously overinflated with the amount of money it has. So there is I think the quality in Serie A is actually really high. And so there is a massive opportunity to challenge the city council who own the stadium, challenge it saying, look, Serie A could be this international league that we all want it to be. But we cannot achieve that if we stick with this ridiculous situation of how stadiums are owned. And so why not propose renovating San Siro but passing ownership to the club, and therefore basically making a massive media storm out of it to try and convince the council and the wider Italian establishment basically to just ditch this archaic, ridiculous situation of how stadiums are owned and sort of move forward with how well everyone else does it. Like, just look at the Premier League, look at the Bundesliga, look at every stadium there, and they are infinitely better than the crumbling stadiums that we have in Italy. I say we, I don't live in Italy, but Serie A has. So that is why I think that San Siro should be renovated. Or if it I understand that that would be very hard to do, but at least give it a go. That's what I mean. At least try to keep San Siro more than is currently being tried. Now, my fifth and final hot take, and this might be, I guess, the most controversial of the lot, and this is where I see Milan's future as a team, a football club, maybe heading, and I can't stress the word maybe enough, because it is the fact that we could possibly be the next Arsenal. Now, let me explain this. So recently, in terms of contract renewals, we've had some successes like with Theo. We don't quite know what's going to happen with Leao, but the signs are positive. Same with, Salamakers, I think. Benacer, I think, although that's the same as Leao. We are securing some of the star players in our squad. But just thinking of, the two we've let go this summer, Kessie and Romagnoli, the differences in our, their demands for wages and what we were preparing to offer them, it wasn't ridiculously big. So with Kessie, he wanted 7-8 million a year. Now, just think back to the Kessie of the 2020-2021 season, the season that we qualified for the Champions League. In a season that was riddled with injuries, he was one of the few players that started nearly every game for us that season, both Europa League and Serie A. And he was exceptional. I think without Kessie, we wouldn't have qualified for the Champions League. End of story. That's why I think he was just so important to how we managed to achieve Champions League qualification. And so I think that, frankly, the fact that we didn't offer him 7 million a year, was it disrespectful? Possibly, but frankly, it was just dumb, because like the Kessie of the season that's just gone was all right. He turned up in the final few games, but he wasn't nearly as good as the Kessie of the season previously, and this is because probably the contract uncertainty and all that. And I just think that if we realise that we were paying 7 million a year for Ibra, and I'm not saying that we were paying too much. That is the wages that we should be paying for a lion like him, and the effect he brings on the dressing room, and frankly the performances he just puts on the pitch as well. Don't forget, he was injured for the majority of last season. He still scored 8 goals, so I'm not saying he doesn't deserve those wages. But I'm just saying that if we're paying those wages to Ibra, and we were paying close to those wages for Donnarumma, is 7 million a year really that sort of bad for Kessie? And this goes on to my point about our sort of fiscal management, because Kessie was a really important performer for us that season, and frankly, in my opinion, deserved that 7 million a year wage. But the fact that we didn't pay him that, and the fact we just simply let him go to Barca, who have their own ridiculous financial problems, and they still paid the wages that Kessie deserves, frankly, it worries me, because that's not the mentality that we should have if we really want to get back to the very top. We need to sort of look at our star players and accept that as they grow into these star players, as they grow into these players with a worldwide reputation and the ones that the very biggest clubs want, we need to accept that we need to pay those big wages for him. Like, as I quoted Ibra's and Donnarumma's wages. I think personally that they were deserved because of how important those players were, and the same goes with Kessie. I think this is why I'm worried about becoming the next Arsenal, because they were under the later years of Arsene Wenger. They were this top 4 stable club that won an FA Cup from time to time and never did anything in the Champions League. And if we want to progress past that, because currently, we've just won the league, but that's our first win in 11 years. We need to prove that we are seriously back for the long term. And so we are still at probably a consistent Champions League level club. We are not quite serial title winners, obviously. We've only got one title so far. So in order to progress past this Arsenal level, we need to show more boldness in the transfer market. Look at Liverpool, for example. They were at the same level that we probably are when they signed Virgil van Dijk for 75 million. Now, this was a massive financial gamble. It could have so easily backfired like it did with Maguire, but it proved to be a fantastic investment, Van Dijk is widely regarded to be the best defender in the world, and the rest is history. So that's why I think that in order to progress past this level that Arsenal were once at, we need to be more bold with our money. We need to accept that to get to this higher level, we need to pay those higher wages to the players that really deserve it, like Kessie did. So basically, in conclusion, with with all I've been discussing with Arsenal and Kessie and all that, my point is that if we go down this path of caring more about our finances than our possible success on the field, that is the very definition of becoming the next Arsenal. And look where they are now. I was talking about them, they used to be a solid Champions League club, but now they haven't played in the Champions League for like 5 years. So that is my point. That is my worry. I'm not saying that this will happen, by the way. I just want to stress the word maybe enough. I am not outright saying right now that Milan will be the next Arsenal. Honestly, if I believe that, I would be a lot more depressed, because I really do not want that to happen. But I'm just saying that it's probably controversial because we've just won the Scudetto. What reason is there not to be optimistic for the future? We have a young squad. Look at how we've progressed over the last few years. Why would we suddenly be going down this pessimistic route? That's why I think it's controversial, frankly, and I think it just needs to be said, because there is definitely a danger of it happening. So there we go. Those are my 5 AC Milan hot takes, if you will. Now, if you have your own thoughts on these, make sure to drop them in the comments below. And my next video, I might have something in between now and Monday, when I should release the next Milan Monday episode. So I guess stay tuned for that, and see you next time.